Kristi Noem praised the Supreme Court in public, then defied its orders behind closed doors. What she hid was worse than corruption, till one lawmaker stepped forward and revealed the truth.
Yields. I think we've covered everyone. Mr. Ranking Member, you're recognized for a closing statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like to associate myself with Mr. Garcia's statement. I can't believe that we would send somebody or anyone from our country somewhere else and say, well, we cut off all communication. We're a better country than that. And I just thank Mr. Garcia for raising that question. Secretary Noem, at the start of this hearing, you stood here and took an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Then you sat down and dodged the truth over and over and over for a little more than 3 hours, so help you God. You repeatedly testified that you and the Department of Homeland Security will follow the Constitution, the laws, and the order of the Supreme Court. Well, the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution says that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And yet, a federal court found that the Department of Homeland Security, under your watch, believes that it has a right to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons without the semblance of due process. So you did not tell the truth to this committee today when you said you would follow the Constitution and comply with due process. You also testified that you follow orders of the Supreme Court of the United States and all courts. But the Supreme Court unanimously directed the government to facilitate the return of Kilmar Garcia to the United States. But you just testified before this committee that Kilmar Garcia will never return to the United States. So you didn't tell the truth to this committee again when you said that you comply with court orders and decisions. You've overseen the deportation of U.S. citizen children and have claimed that their parents chose to take their children with them. But you produced no evidence that the mother, let alone both parents, of those children freely gave consent to have their children deported from the United States. In fact, everyone involved in those cases say that the mothers, in fact, did not want their children, especially their sick American children, deported. In fact, your agency lured families to ICE appointments under false pretenses, lied to them, refused to let them speak with an attorney or children's father, and deported them before a court had time to even hear the case. You've given yourself the unilateral right to deport anyone you deem a threat. You refuse to comply with court orders that try to stop you. That puts all of us at risk. Beyond your false testimony about the administration's deportation policies, you falsely stated that the administration is focused on a full range of DSH's missions. Instead, your budget request appears to reflect a view that DHS's sole purpose is to be a border wall construction agency that deports U.S. citizen children with cancer. Your budget proposed cuts to cybersecurity, emergency preparedness, and aviation security. Even before asking Congress for these budget cuts, you've overseen mass reductions in the workforce at CISA and FEMA. Despite repeated requests from this committee on how many people have been fired or have been bullied into quitting before their tenure, DHS has refused to share that information. So it should worry every American that we do not know how many people are left at FEMA to respond to disasters and how many cyber defenders still work at CISA as China and other adversaries attack our systems every day. And you made clear in response to my questioning, you have no written plans for FEMA. It is very apparent that also is no plan for CISA, where you are trying to gut the agency's funding and falsely claiming that CISA is a censorship agency. Since CISA never censored anyone, but now we are all paying the price for you buying into a baseless conspiracy theory. Secretary Noem, I'm glad that you finally came to testify before this committee, but I'm disappointed, along with a lot of my Democratic colleagues, that you stood here and took an oath to tell the truth, then repeatedly failed to do so to this committee. Let me just say, if you dance with the devil long enough, he's liable to follow you home. I hope that you will stop dancing around the truth and start telling the truth so this committee can do its work, helping to defend DHS from the attacks you've launched against it. Mr. Chair.
What you just witnessed wasn't a politician scolding a witness. It was something far more serious and far more rare in American government. This was a moment where someone in power was confronted directly, publicly, and relentlessly for breaking trust with the American people. And Congressman Bennie Thompson wasn't merely challenging Kristi Noem's evasive answers. He was walking the entire country, step by step, through the consequences of what happens when those entrusted with safeguarding our rights treat the Constitution as optional, something flexible, something that bends to politics rather than constrains it. To understand the full weight of this moment, you have to understand what the Department of Homeland Security represents. DHS didn't exist 25 years ago. It was born out of national fear, national trauma, and national urgency after September 11th. It became the department responsible for some of the most extraordinary powers the federal government possesses: surveillance, border enforcement, immigration detention, cyber defense, emergency response, counterterrorism. These are powers that can save lives, but they can just as easily be abused. They require honesty, accountability, and strict adherence to law. They require truth. So when Bennie Thompson, who once chaired the Homeland Security Committee, says that Kristi Noem swore an oath to tell the truth and then spent hours dodging, spinning, and distorting key facts, he isn't speaking as a partisan. He is speaking as someone who understands exactly how dangerous DHS becomes when truth disappears. When Thompson cites the Fifth Amendment, he isn't speaking in rhetorical flourish. He is reminding the country that the Fifth Amendment exists for a reason: to stop the government from seizing, imprisoning, or harming people without due process of law. It is one of the core restraints on federal power. And so when a federal court found that DHS, under Noem's leadership, believed it could secretly place U.S. residents in foreign prisons, without hearings, without charges, without lawyers, that wasn't just a policy failure. It was a violation of the most fundamental promise the government makes to its citizens: that liberty cannot be taken away unless the law requires it. Thompson's point is clear: Noem didn't just oversee a bad policy. She oversaw a mindset inside DHS, a belief that constitutional rights can be suspended whenever convenient. And when she tells Congress under oath that she follows the Constitution, Thompson can point to clear evidence that proves otherwise. That is why he repeats it over and over: you did not tell the truth. Then Thompson turns to the Supreme Court. Not a partisan panel. Not a single judge. A unanimous Supreme Court order demanding the return of Kilmar Garcia, an American resident who was wrongfully removed from the country. When the Supreme Court speaks unanimously, the government listens. That is the rule. That is the hierarchy. That is how checks and balances work. But Noem testified, on camera, that Garcia will never return. Think about the precedent this sets. Think about the arrogance required to sit atop a federal agency and declare that the highest court in the land will be ignored. The Supreme Court is the final interpreter of the law. When you claim the right to ignore it, you are not enforcing the law. You are replacing it. That is why Thompson keeps returning to the phrase, "You did not tell the truth." Because the issue isn't whether she believes she acted correctly. The issue is that she is attempting to make belief equal to fact, and they are not the same. Then he moves to something even more heartbreaking, the deportation of U.S. citizen children. Children with severe medical conditions. Children whose parents did not consent. Children who were legally entitled to protection. Think about the power required to take a sick child from their family. Think about the fear and anguish those parents must have felt. Thompson recounts how DHS lured families to appointments under false pretenses, removed access to lawyers, and deported children before courts could intervene. These weren't bureaucratic errors. These were deliberate strategies designed to avoid oversight, prevent judicial review, and speed removals before anyone could stop them.
Thompson paints a picture of an agency acting as if it is above the judiciary, above Congress, and above the Constitution itself. And he forces the human cost back into the conversation, because in political debates, people often become statistics. When he says, "These were sick American children," he reminds everyone that these are lives. Real, vulnerable lives. Then he broadens the scope. Noem reduced staffing at FEMA and CISA, two of the most critical agencies for national safety. FEMA is the lifeline during hurricanes, wildfires, floods, and tornadoes. CISA is the shield against cyber attacks, election interference, and attacks on critical infrastructure. Losing personnel at these agencies isn't abstract. It means fewer firefighters on the front lines, fewer cyber experts defending our power grids, less resilience during disasters. And the worst part? DHS refuses to provide Congress with accurate numbers on personnel losses. They aren't just weakening America's defenses, they are doing it quietly, without transparency, without accountability. When Thompson points out that Kristi Noem falsely claimed CISA is a censorship agency, he highlights a bigger pattern, embracing conspiracy theories that undermine trust in institutions protecting Americans. CISA did not censor anyone, it provided data on foreign interference. Yet in today's political climate, claiming censorship is easier than defending the truth. Thompson then delivers a line that echoes beyond the hearing room: "If you dance with the devil long enough, he's liable to follow you home." This isn't just a metaphor, it's a warning to every official who thinks they can bend rules, ignore courts, or manipulate facts without consequence. Secrets eventually become public truth. You understand the moment, like, subscribe, and comment which part hit hardest. Hearings like this aren't just about oversight,